Hello, good evening. Welcome to another live in the lab training tonight. It's been a very busy day today. I've done a lot of research on the ingredients I'm going to be talking about tonight. I'll start off just by saying I hope everybody grabs their pens and notebooks and takes lots of notes. Because I'm going to be doing two things. Oh, I lost one paper. Where is it at? Maybe it's at the back of this. Yeah, the last thing I'm going to go over. We'll talk about that later. Welcome tonight. I'm going to give it just a minute here for everyone to join. Shout out to, let's see, who logged on first. Valerie Samuza, first one on tonight. Hello, Valerie. And Sylvia's number 2. Sylvia, thanks for tuning in. Tina, Jeanette, how you doing, Jeanette? Annette Johnson is here too. Great, thank you. So far, yeah, we've got North Carolina chiming in. Unless, Sylvia, if you're in Florida right now, I'm not sure where you're at right now. Idaho's chiming in. Rob's here from Arkansas. Tim from Northern Utah. How you doing? Thanks, Tim. Lots to talk about tonight. Actually, today's going to be a topic that is really close to my heart because I've had relatives who have actually had cognitive function impairments. And so we won't get that detailed tonight, but what I'm going to be doing is talking in detail about ingredients that can help with cognitive function, and I'm actually going to be citing some clinical studies as well on the ingredients. So let's go ahead and get started. It's been just a couple minutes here. Again, welcome to In the Lab. I'm Tracy Gibbs, Chief Science Officer for LifeWise. Super excited to be with you all here tonight. And tonight's training is specifically on cognitive enhancing ingredients, or I should say the most powerful cognitive enhancing ingredients, and how LifeWise has assembled all of those into one single, easy-to-use, effective product that just melts in your mouth and gets mouth-to-brain delivery in 3 to 5 minutes. So we're going to be talking and training tonight specifically on the ingredients found in our product called Clarity. But whether you're using Clarity or not, tonight our live is important. Because some of these nutrients that I'm going to be talking about can really change your life or change the life of loved ones you have who might be suffering from cognitive impairment. Now, I realize that every single married woman out there is going to believe that their husband has a cognitive impairment, all right, or a lack of cognitive function. So everybody listen up tonight because this might just help your spouse. Okay. Let's get started. The first and one of the most powerful cognitive and enhancement ingredients that I'm going to be talking about tonight is known as alpha GPC. I get asked this question all the time, so I'll go ahead and say it, even though it's probably going to go right over your heads and nobody's going to care. The ingredient really is called alpha GPC, but the actual name is alpha glycerol phosphorylcholine. Excuse me. That was even a tongue twister for me. Alpha glycerol phosphorylcholine. Don't worry about that word, okay? Don't try to spell it. Even scientists don't try to spell it. It is commonly known as alpha GPC. You're going to see it on ingredient labels and product labels as alpha GPC. When you do an internet search on the internet, it's going to be alpha GPC. Nobody types out the glycerol phosphorylcholine. It's just too long to say, all right? So, alpha GPC. Alpha GPC is actually made most often than not inside the human body. It is a derivative made from choline, and choline is a very important nutrient that's found in, or used to be found in, a lot of foods that we eat. And the reason why I say used to is because we don't eat a lot of those foods anymore. Now, growing up, I remember my parents making me eat liver with onions, eating my egg yolks, eating the fat off the roast beef, organ meats like brain. I have had brain before. I've had heart before. This particular choline is a fatty acid that's found in a lot of the stuff that we don't eat anymore. We've become kind of a picky society, I guess, and nobody's living in that depression mentality again, which started with our grandparents back in the 1920s. And for you younger people, that would have been your great-grandparents. But my grandparents lived through the Great Depression, and food was scarce. And so they used the entire part of the animal back then. And it became quite normal for people and actually quite tasty. I do remember heart tasting pretty good. We used to make heart sandwiches and things like that. And heart contains some very important nutrients for our body. The liver contains important nutrients. And believe it or not, there were times when I actually enjoyed the liver. It needed lots of onions and it needed lots of ketchup, but I got to where it didn't taste so bad. You know, chicken liver is another thing that I really got to enjoy living in Japan. They call it yakitori, and if you go to a yakitori, I want to say restaurant, but they're not restaurants. They're like little street vendors in carts. But they would fry up these chicken hearts and chicken livers and things like that on these little skewer sticks, and they were really tasty with the teriyaki sauce and things like that. But in modern Western diets, choline is deficient in our diets. And so our bodies have trouble producing enough alpha GPC. And now, thanks to science, we can actually take choline and combine the right molecules and make it into a dietary supplement. You know, the cool thing that many of you don't know about alpha GPC is that in most European Union countries, alpha GPC is actually a prescription drug. Why is it a prescription drug? Because it works so well. In order for it to be a prescription drug, you have to have efficacy studies. You have to prove that it has some type of function outside of just something that food can do. And so the really cool thing about alpha GPC is that it has these studies. It has literal efficacy for, I'll just list some of the things that it's used as a prescription drug for. It's used for Alzheimer's disease in the EU. It's used for stroke patients because they have shown that it increases blood flow throughout the body. It's used as a prescription for memory recall, and it also shows that it's improved thinking skills and other mental cognitive enhancing functions. So alpha GPC does this through a process of increasing acetylcholine levels in the brain. And why is that important? Acetylcholine is like pure brain food. So imagine if your brain could be nourished at an optimal level. Well, that's what alpha GPC is. And the cool thing about alpha GPC is that it doesn't take hundreds or thousands of milligrams to do this. It literally is effective at doses as low as 10 milligrams, okay? And there are some clinical studies. I'll get into those studies later, but there's lots of validation and clinical evidence for how this works. Now, the cool thing about alpha GPC in the United States is it's not a prescription drug. It is sold as a dietary supplement, which allows us to put it in this wonderful product called Clarity. Let's move on. Let's talk about, it's not my favorite ingredient I'll talk about in just a few minutes, but I want to talk about phosphatidylserine. That may be another complicated word for some of you, and it is a really long word to spell. In my industry, we call it PS. There's phosphatidylcholine, which is commonly known as PC, and then there's phosphatidylserine, which is commonly known as PS. Now, phosphatidylserine is another important fat that has important functions on not just your brain cells, but every single cell in your body. In fact, every single cell membrane in your body is made up of phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylserine. So PC and PS are super important. Many of you maybe have heard me talk about phosphatidylcholine in the past, simply because that's what I use to form liposomal structures. It's a very necessary fat that creates that fat bubble that forms a liposome. And why that's really cool is because in your body, your cells can recognize that bubble. And when you encapsulate a nutrient in phosphatidylcholine, It can absorb easily into the cell because it's recognized as a nutrient, and it increases the absorption and bioavailability of almost any ingredient that you are able to capsulate into that phosphatidylcholine bubble. Phosphatidylserine is almost identical in its use in liposomal structures, but more importantly, it is pure cellular food and has a very profound effect on brain function. Now, I will also say that phosphatidylserine most commonly is used as a prescription drug in the EU and in Canada. It is also used for Alzheimer's disease and normal age-related decline in memory, thinking skills, and also increases blood flow to the brain as well. So, again, there's a reason why these European countries consider this a prescription drug, because they've done the clinical studies, they've done the clinical validation, they know it works. And another cool thing about phosphatidylserine, like alpha GPC, it works at very low doses. 5 to 10 milligrams is the average dose for phosphatidylserine in Alzheimer's patients in the EU for the prescription drug. Now, I can't name any of these prescription drugs because they're trademarked, but you can Google search them. And I don't have permission to use their trademarks, otherwise I'd just spit them out. At least I don't think I can say them, but I'm going to play it safe and not say them. The cool thing about phosphatidylserine, though, it used to be derived in the prescription drugs back in the 80s and 90s from cow brains. But because of the mad cow disease scares and everything, they stopped doing that. But they found that in cabbages and soybeans, there's a large supply of phosphatidylserine. So now they have developed methods to extract phosphatidylserine from cabbage and soy and other beans and legumes and other cruciferous fruits and vegetables too. So, excuse me, not fruits, cruciferous vegetables. So that's where we get all our phosphatidylserine from. It is derived from cabbages. Maybe it's one of the reasons why I've always liked cabbage. I don't know. But as a child, I liked cabbage, but I didn't know it had PS in it. So that's the cool thing about another ingredient in Clarity is now we have two wonderful ingredients, alpha GPC and phosphatidylserine, which are both prescription drugs in other countries for Alzheimer's, which I talked about. But we're allowed to sell it as a dietary supplement in the United States, all right? Now we're going to talk about one of my most favorite cognitive enhancing ingredients. And it's one that is surrounded by a lot of controversy. And I'll get to that controversial point when I'm finished first telling you what it is. So one of my favorite cognitive enhancing ingredients is called Vinpocetine. Vinpocetine. Okay, Vinpocetine. Vinpocetine is a phytochemical that comes from the periwinkle plant. So if you eat straight periwinkle, though, for too much, it's a little toxic, and not because of the vinpocetine, but because of the tannins and other things in periwinkle. It'll cause an upset stomach. But they have found many, many years ago, I think in the 1960s, that vinpocetine was a super phytochemical for increasing blood flow to microcapillaries in your body. Now, microcapillaries are found especially in your brain, in your fingers, and in your toes, all those areas of your body that tend to get cold because of slow or low blood circulation. But vinpocetine is a blood circulation enhancer. Now, just like alpha GPC and phosphatidylserine, vinpocetine is a prescription drug in European countries as well as Canada. This drug is not trademarked anymore, it's Cavitin. So I can say the word. I want you guys to Google Cavitin, and you will see all of the clinical studies related to vinpocetine, and guess what it's used to treat? It's used to treat dementia. We have a huge dementia problem in this country. Dementia is basically the state of your brain cells dying. And when portions of your brain, and for a lot of people, we don't use all of our brain, and some of you may have dementia but not know it because it's not affecting your cognitive function, it's not affecting organs in your body shutting down. But when it does reach those areas of the brain and your organs begin to shut down, or you may have schizophrenic-like symptoms or memory loss similar to Alzheimer's, things like that can happen with dementia. And when that happens, it's just those portions of your brain dying. Well, they have found that those portions of your brain that die, in almost all cases, have little to no blood flow going to those portions of the brain, which is why Vinpocetine is so crucial at treating dementia. Now, it must be used, if you're talking about the disease, in real early stages and at higher doses than what you're going to find in your average dietary supplement, which is why, like I said, it's a drug in the European Union. Now, there is some controversy over this ingredient. There's a lot of rumors out there stating that Vinpocetine isn't safe, and I'm actually going to read the study on the safety of Vinpocetine that was done 30 years ago that is the cause of this controversy, all right? Here we go. Let's see. This was 1986. Dr. J. Werner conducted a clinical study on the safety and efficacy of Vinpocetine. He was treating, I believe, stroke patients with it at the time. He was injecting 40 milligrams a day into his stroke patients, post-stroke. So after they've had a stroke, when you've got impaired blood flow and things like that, and impaired cognitive function, he was using Vinpocetine to treat these patients. Not only did he see tremendous results in the recovery, but here's what he also found. 0.5% of his patients began to suffer from an increase in blood pressure. The clinical, and again, that's where the rumor started that Vinpocetine isn't safe because it can raise your blood pressure. Sorry, I have to laugh. This is how the pharmaceutical propaganda machine takes over when it comes to it being sold as a dietary supplement. They all say it's not safe, it could raise your blood pressure, and blood pressure is associated with heart disease, which is the #1 killer in the United States. Well, yeah, strokes are also on that list though, and they saw tremendous results with strokes. But yes, 0.5% of his patients had an increase in blood pressure, okay? Now remember, he was treating his patients with 40 milligrams of Vinpocetine. The clinical dose, the prescription drug, Cognition, is only 10 milligrams. So you could take 4 times the dose found in the prescription drugs, and 0.5% of you might get elevated blood pressure. Now, for me, that would be a good thing because I naturally have low blood pressure, and so does my family. It's a genetic condition that we have. But the average dietary supplement contains 1 to 2 milligrams of Vinpocetine. Clarity, I'll just be upfront, is 1 milligram of Vinpocetine. So you could take 40 strips a day, which is more than a month's supply, and it might, in 0.5% of you, so 1/2 of every 100 people, or 1 person in 200 people might get elevated blood pressure. All right? That's how dangerous Vinpocetine is, man. You better be careful with this stuff. I'm just kidding. Now, if you already have elevated blood pressure, there's another study, and this was a follow-up study in 1993, that showed in elevated patients with elevated blood pressure, post-stroke patients with elevated blood pressure, didn't see any increase in blood pressure when using Cognition, the drug. So 10 milligrams a day was totally safe. They didn't see an elevation. It was just those huge doses that caused the problem, all right? But again, very effective phytochemical, plant-based nutrition or plant-based chemical that can have a very positive effect on increasing blood flow to your body. Now, I want to state one more study. There it is. Yes, recent studies have shown it to be effective for post-COVID related tinnitus. Now, personal story, I have that. I didn't get the vaccine. It has nothing to do with the vaccine. It has everything to do with the fact that I got COVID. Since I got COVID, though, in late February of 2020, I've had tinnitus. And it wasn't until I started reading about Vinpocetine and developed clarity, I take 3 to 5 of these strips a day. And when I do, I barely even notice, I can't even tell that I have a problem with tinnitus. But I'll tell you what, on the days that I forget to take 3 to 5 strips a day, I hear it. I hear it, like especially in a quiet room when I'm all by myself, I hear the ringing. Now, they said that 10 to 15 milligrams is what they used in these studies to treat tinnitus. And I've even been thinking myself, man, I don't want to take 10 or 15 of these strips per day. I might have to go buy another Vinpocetine supplement or something, but I am going to try it first. I'm going to try, just recently I thought I really want to kick this tinnitus. I'm going to try maybe 5 to 10 of these strips a day and see where it takes me. I mean, if I had to spend $10 a day for something that would fix my tinnitus, I would do it. And that's what I've decided I'm going to do. So either way, I just want you guys to know that there is a study showing out there, and I know it affects a large population. In fact, they said that tinnitus is like the 3rd most common symptom of post-COVID effects. I think it was chronic fatigue was 1, hair loss was number 2, tinnitus was number 3, ischemic heart disease was like number 4. I mean, it's crazy, this list of side effects from the vaccine or from getting COVID. But either way, Vinpocetine could possibly help with that. Another ingredient I want to talk about, and this will be the last one we talk about today, Huperzine A. Many of you have heard me talk about Huperzine A before. It is also on my list of favorite phytochemicals. This one was quite surprising because it's actually found in very high concentrations in club moss. Now, club moss is native or indigenous to mainland China, in the southern regions of China, but it doesn't necessarily only grow there. They have found it in Thailand, they found it in the Philippines, but everybody associates it with China because it was a Chinese researcher in the 1980s. I believe it was the Chinese Academy of Sciences, so a state-run facility that discovered Huperzine A in this club moss. And why that was a really cool discovery is Huperzine A has been identified as one of the most potent and one of the most effective cognitive enhancers in the world today. And because it comes from club moss, it's not a prescription in any country. It's not a prescription in the EU. It's not a prescription in Canada. It's not a prescription here in the United States. So it's pretty cool. But Huperzine A has been known to improve memory and mental function in hundreds of clinical studies, not just done in China, but here in the United States as well. In fact, if you go to nih.gov, go to the search bar, type in Huperzine A, and you'll see hundreds of clinical studies for its cognitive function. But what might come up more than anything was Huperzine A's treatment of Parkinson's disease. Again, Parkinson's disease is also a brain-related cognitive impairment or slow brain death disorder. And they have found that in some studies, and not just Alzheimer's and types of dementia, but they've been using Huperzine A as a treatment for Parkinson's disease. Now, I have a close friend who has Parkinson's disease, and I have given him lots of Huperzine A. He has good days and he has bad days. So I am not claiming at all that this is a cure for Parkinson's disease. But I do know that my friend has more good days than bad days since we've met and since I've been giving him products. So look into that. It might be a way to improve the quality of life of friends and family you have that might be suffering from Parkinson's disease. By the way, they also treat depression with it in China. It's actually a very well-known treatment for depression and ADHD and other things like that, other brain disorders. So there are a couple of other ingredients that, we won't really go over, but I'll tell you, you see this list right here. We talked about alpha GPC, phosphatidylserine, Vinpocetine, Huperzine A, acetylcholine we didn't talk about, but that's very similar to alpha GPC in that it's a healthy and beneficial fat. The dietary supplement facts panel is right there with all the ingredients on it. And just because I'm not the best morning person in the world, when I formulated this product, I knew I'd be taking it first thing in the morning. I threw in a small amount because I'm caffeine sensitive. I put 20 milligrams of caffeine in this product. So if you're like, I got to have 5 cups of coffee and a Red Bull and Monster before I get up in the morning, the amount of caffeine in here is going to be minuscule for you. But if you're like me and caffeine sensitive, 20 milligrams gives me a nice pick-me-up. I work out every other day. When I say workout, I play basketball with some buddies, and that's my cardio as well as everything else. But I'll do 1 or 2 of these before I play basketball. And then about midday, I do 1 or 2 more. I am going to be bumping up that dose to about 4 or 5 p.m. I'm going to add 1 or 2 more to work on, like I said, my tinnitus and things like that. So it is totally safe to take 5 or 6 of these things a day if you need. If you are a caffeine addict and you want to come off of caffeine, this is your answer. How do you know if you're a caffeine addict? If you miss your cup of coffee and you start getting a pounding headache, you're a caffeine addict, all right? This would be a great way to start coming off of caffeine, because combined with all the other ingredients in here, the caffeine, Vinpocetine, Huperzine A, and everything like that, we get a mouth to brain. By the way, Vinpocetine, alpha GPC, all of these ingredients cross the blood-brain barrier, so you get a nice pick-me-up in the morning, a nice cognitive enhancing ingredient. And by the way, we purchased a very special essential oil from Japan. It is a Japanese peppermint essential oil, and that is the only flavor that we use in Clarity. And it's one of those essential oils that give you that nice sinus cavity, like peppermint burn feeling that I love. Kids may not like it. I don't know, some kids like mint, some kids don't. But adults, man, you love this stuff. So it's the best breath mint as well as the best cognitive enhancer on the market. And those are, and you can research these ingredients, you guys. The 5 ingredients that I talked about today are literally the most powerful cognitive enhancers on the planet. And we have all of them in one single product. That, again, is super affordable. I mean, when you break down the cost of a 30-unit package, it's about $1.20 a day, $1.25 a day for one of these strips. 4 times, 5 times cheaper than your Starbucks coffee, right? About 5 times cheaper than your Red Bull, things like that. And it's a natural, not just caffeine, small amounts of caffeine, but a mental clarifier, which is what you drink those products for anyway, right? You want the cognitive enhancement. You want that kick in the pants energy boost. That's what we're looking for when we do all of those massive energy drinks and everything, but you get all that without the sugar. So if you are one of those people, like I said, that might want to nourish your brain and support healthy cognitive function, I strongly encourage you to look at Clarity by LifeWise. If you've got a loved one that could use this product, reach out. Talk to somebody who shared this video with you. Reach out to me on my page. Talk to me, because this could be something that could truly change their lives. So thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you all again next week here in the lab. And if you have any questions, please leave a post here or go ahead and direct message me. And don't forget to look on our website and in your back offices, if you're already a partner or affiliate with our company, we have an FAQ page on this product. So before you ask those questions, go find the FAQ, the frequently asked questions on Clarity, and you might find your answer, because they are there for a reason. They are frequently asked questions. So check those out. And if you can't find an answer there, then go ahead and message me. Thank you all for joining tonight. I appreciate you all. Have a good evening. Bye.